Today, a number of civil society organizations have gotten together to discuss the country's performance in upholding human rights. Well, to discuss this process and more, we do have the ED, Robert Kirenga, for the National Coalition for Human Rights Defenders, joining us on set right now. Very good afternoon, Robert.
Good afternoon.
So help us understand what this universal periodic review process is all about and what it seeks to achieve.
Yes. The Universal Periodic Review mechanism is a state-driven mechanism under the United Nations, where countries, the 193 countries of the United Nations, peer review each other. In others, they come under the Human Rights Council. Countries make recommendations, and the country is free to accept or to take note. When to accept, it means I accept this recommendation and I will implement it. When it takes note, it says we acknowledge, but they are not bound to implement that. So the last time the country was peer reviewed was in 2016, and countries came up with about 200 recommendations touching on different broad spectrum on health rights, socioeconomic rights, and other civil rights also. So what we are trying to do is to see how has government implemented those recommendations that are supposed to improve on the human rights situation.
What are some of the recommendations you had proposed and government was adamant to implement?
Actually, it's not we who propose, it's member states.
The member states.
Member states. So our work as civil society organizations is to monitor
if they are implemented.
If they are being implemented, and also find out from the state through constructive engagement.
You can break
what could
down
be
like
the challenge. One has to do with civil liberties, especially the rights of human rights defenders. One was to take initiative to investigate the break-ins of civil society organizations, the break-in in their offices. Over 35 civil society organizations during that period had their offices broken in, equipment taken, some lost money, and they asked the state to take charge and investigate and issue a report. That's one thing that is still lacking, although police indicated that they had done all the investigation. Then there were other rights to do with liberties, to improve on the situation of human rights defenders, protect human rights defenders by coming up with a law. So far we know that Parliament, through a private member's bill, they are discussing this human rights defenders protection bill. Hopefully, if it is debated by this Parliament, then we see it being passed.
Of course, civil society organizations got together today. So we'd like to know from that meeting what was discussed and what were some of the particular issues that stood out for you during the review process.
Yes, this meeting was involved with, it involved civil society organizations and state actors. We had the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Uganda People's Defense Forces, the Uganda Human Rights Commission. We had also the Uganda Police. Now, ours was launching a roadmap before the next review, which is coming up late next year, in 2021. Uganda will again be reviewed. Say, what have you done in terms of these recommendations? So ours as civil society, ours is to monitor, document, and report. But we do this with state actors. We say, you agreed to do this recommendation. So our teams outside in the country look at every recommendation. We have about 14 thematic areas dealing with the different human rights issues that we are raising.
Why is government adamant to implement most of these recommendations?
Some, it's not adamant per se. Some have got to do with the social, the pass, the economic pass. They require money, especially those to do with socio-economic rights. But there are those that don't require money, especially on dealing with issue of torture.
And
now
also
we have
creating a conducive environment through which you can work as
human rights defenders can work. So those ones are the ones we're going to see now. When we go to the field and correct this report, it must be credible reports, and you must share it with the government and say, government will provide its report. Ours is what we call the shadow report.
Indeed.
A shadow report. So we must make sure on recommendation A, what has been done? Has it been fully implemented, partially implemented? What could be the challenges?
Indeed.
Indeed.
And Robert, yes, we are running out of time. And having identified these issues, what happens next?
What happens next? Now the government engages with other states and say, we could have done more. What the challenges we faced are these and this. And this government can be able to provide them with any assistance, whether it's development aid or technical assistance. So it's basically an engagement where once, how best can we improve on the human rights situation? And it's a diplomatic process. So you're not dealing with politicians, you're dealing with diplomats.
Let's talk about the tough political environment that many civil society organizations have been grappling with. You work for the National Coalition for Human Rights Defenders. How have you been navigating or maneuvering within the shrinking civic space in Uganda, the tough political environment? How have you been maneuvering?
Well, we are a bit resilient. Some of our organizations, as you are aware, have had their accounts closed. but we continue to engage.
Indeed.
And it's beautiful that government is also engaging with development partners that provide support to this. But we are also cautioned by the government in the way we engage with them, that we are not supposed to be doing confrontational work, but engaging them and telling them how best we can improve on the human rights situation. So we keep on engaging with the state. Our work is very clear. It is provided for under Article 38 of the Constitution. All we need to do is constructive engagement with the state, and where we can, engage with these other actors that are responsible for disrupting the environment in which we operate, so that we can see whether a conducive environment can be.
All right. Robert Kirenga is the Executive Director for the Uganda National Coalition of Human Rights Defenders, and he was narrating to us what was discussed during the meeting for the Universal Periodic Review process that is on human rights, especially in Uganda.